Mental Health Within Delinquency by Samuel Dragon. In introduction, we're going to be talking about mental health and its connection to juvenile delinquency. What is mental health? Per the CDC, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. There are over 200 different types and variations, some of which are ADHD, anxiety, teen depression, and mood disorders, suicide, and then overstress. These can be induced through trauma, and the trauma can be from sex assault to abuse, from medical conditions, intoxicants, and overall personal development. And who is impacted? As we can see here, adults and children are all impacted. We can see 2 million times each year an adult is incarcerated, and then that 70.4% of youth in the juvenile justice system. That is a large number, and it's quite alarming. Right here, per the National Alliance on Mental Illness, we have this infograph here, and one issue that is faced when dealing with juveniles is their age and maturity. Their malleable minds can be altered and twisted by the corruptness of those in the environment and society surrounding them. Impact of life. Stressors of young lives. A lot of people think that teen lives or the youth don't have stressors and it's a wonderless time, but it's not. They have stressors too. They're just not the same as ours. Theirs are fitting in with crowds and what they're going to do on the weekend versus paying bills. Their interpretations of right and wrong and their understanding of it from parental figures and then overall their environment. And then the pressure to become successful. Society has put a lot of pressure on young minds to become super powerful, either in academia or just overall in finances. And that is really hard because there's adults who don't understand this, and we're expecting these kids to understand it as well. And it's not very feasible, especially dealing with preteens and teens. And the need to belong, it's a social need. It's ingrained into each human to not feel isolated. But when teens do feel this way, they're going to try to lean in towards other groups, and some of them may be bad groups, and that peer pressure can really be seen here for that needing. And then delinquency in our youth. Juvenile delinquency is a concern not only for teachers and parents, but for law enforcement. Questions such as how did I get here or why are they doing this may arise. According to Basto-Pierre, however, a history of juvenile delinquency and justice involvement are not only powerful predictors of adult criminal behavior, but a broad spectrum of family, psychological, and social problems during childhood and adolescence has predicted several criminal indicators in adulthood. The association between childhood deviance and its growth into adulthood is of the utmost importance in the understanding of how. According to Basto-Pierre, we recommend the use of effective preventative policies in juvenile delinquency, the establishment of common and effective guidelines for screening, identifying, and preventing inadequate parenting styles or high-risk behaviors should be a priority involving a large group of community services such as child welfare, healthcare services, social neighborhood institutions, and local authorities. In this regard, recent cost-benefit studies have shown that preventative programs for high-risk families and interventions with juvenile delinquents. And then delinquency in our youth continued. According to Siegel and Welsh, kids may choose a crime as a measure to solve personal problems and show their competence. And a lot of different stimuli come into effect, such as behavioral, to include self-image and worth, interfamily issues such as neglect and abuse, social factors, peer pressure and social norms, and environmental. What is that environment saying on those social norms? And is there poverty? And how is the overall standing in the community? Here we have how do we stop it. According to the Mental Health America, the juvenile justice system, the substance abuse system, and the education system and the mental health system should work together to develop integrated programs and services for those children. Which should foster academic and social success as well as a behavioral health treatment. It's a multi-layered approach within all the facts of the youth, and each resource should need to be tailored and delivered in a receptive manner to maximize its effectiveness. I like to think we can impact their lives anywhere from the living room to the courtroom, and it should never stop. Give them a chance to re-image and regain control. Mental health and troubled youth. A lot of issues here with ADHD. It's associated to aggressive behavior, behavioral problems associated to substance abuse, and then mental health has been linked to an increase in criminal behavior. We can see here that adults suffer with enough ailments in question, but an immature and underdeveloped youth would in theory have a much harder time understanding it. There's adults who have a hard time dealing with this, so why do we think the youth should be any different? Social media. The use of social media in communication. A lot of kids now are resorting to social media, and it's causing a disconnect between interpersonal communication. With that being said, they use it as an escape from reality, using avatars and fake profiles. Now, in theory, if they're getting bullied at school and they come home to try to use that as an escape from reality with a lack or hindrance in communication skills, and they get bullied online, they can never escape it. They're not communicating with people in person to vent or to seek help, so therefore they feel trapped. They get stuck in negative thoughts, and they start to succumb to those thoughts. And that can lead into the digital criminal footprint. A lot of these organized crimes and then these criminals are targeting kids who are in those negative states of mind, and then they're extorting them and exploiting that as a weakness and recruiting them into organized crime. And that's where a large concern can come into play. According to Albano, there are youth, especially those with social anxiety and depression, who may have tendency to spend more time online and reduce their real face-to-face contact with other folks. Delinquency and law enforcement. We need to identify the impact of mental illness. We've already linked the association between mental illness and to the juvenile delinquency issue, encompassing law enforcement at 70.4%. And according to the OJJDP screening, the purpose of screening is to identify youths who might require an immediate response to their mental health needs and assessment. The purpose of assessment is to gather a more comprehensive and individualized profile of youth. We need to understand these and incorporate a higher functioning ability to rehabilitation. And then delinquency within criminal justice. Here are the detections and identifications of mental illness, and they can be known. Counseling, mental health services, activities, medicine, diagnosis, and socialization are all the solutions or potential ways to get around that and prevent it from furthering in their lives. And then in conclusion, we know an issue exists, and we know that it's up to us to resolve it and prevent its furtherance. We as a society need to be better in the system and let these kids regain control of themselves. Mental health is an epidemic affecting adults and children, and it is not discriminatory upon who is going to be linked to. Therapy ran sites and additional corrective methods can be used rather than prison bars and jumpsuits. Here we will see how to help young deviants and reduce future crime. And then the references.